I'm Melanie Swayze, a global real estate advisor with Gibson Sotheby's based in Metro Boston. I closely advise homebuyers and sellers of all stages of life, guiding them to intelligent, winning decisions.
I'm Derek Lumpkins, a real estate investor with a background in community organizing. I also enhance equity and inclusion initiatives at companies and organizations, and I guide leaders through executive coaching.
When we get together, we dive into the intersections of culture, class, mindset, and Black freedom.
Welcome to the Black Landing Forum,
a podcast about Black wealth, power, and land.
Hey, Miss Melanie.
Derek, happy springtime.
Happy spring. Happy spring. Spring has sprung, finally.
Even though I'm wearing a sweater.
I was saying to you before, it looks like you're in the middle of winter.
It's New England spring.
Yeah, that's true. And you can hear my springtime allergies. I still have a little bit of congestion, but doing better than I had been just recently. But such as it is, right?
Yes, and I actually have some starting just as of the last hour myself. A little bit of stuffiness, but yeah, I welcome it.
Mm-hmm. You welcome it? Oh.
Well, I welcome the transition of seasons. It's also the time of year of my birth, so I get light and
get
happy
all the feels.
Yeah.
You know, I'm also thinking, this is episode 40 for us.
Wow.
So as we tend to do on the 10th episode, we give a little bit of a look back at what we've been talking about. And we also, this time we kind of want to think a little bit about what we might talk about looking ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was thinking about looking back at the previous 9 episodes, a lot of what we talk about is just different versions of being present and preparing for the future in different ways. So we've talked about liberation, and we've talked about capitalism and the end of capitalism and how that affects things. We've even talked to folks like Nigel and like Paul, who are thinking about different ways of investing in the future, whether it's their personal investments or helping other people invest themselves in a new place and in thinking about their futures. So it's just kind of an interesting way to sort of look back at all those episodes, look back at multiples of those episodes, and think about how people are thinking about the future, acting upon present things to prepare for the future, just, thinking about the future in different ways.
Yeah, it's almost like, even I think, being willing to assume that the future needs to be redefined, like that we need to think about options and adaptability in terms of relationships and community, in terms of the environment differently, because so much is changing so quickly.
Yeah. And, something that we've tended to avoid, but I think will be unavoidable in the near future, is AI. Like you and I have been saying, we don't want to talk about AI. AI is kind of overrated. I have no particular interest in AI, but at the same time, we know that AI is infused in a lot of things. Like we were saying before, that utility companies use AI to meter electricity and measure water, and governments use AI to sort of monitor things, price changes, all kinds of things. So AI, it's everywhere for a lot of us, but it's not necessarily in our everyday lives, at least not in the ubiquitous way in which a lot of these AI companies would like it to be. And I'm hoping that it will not be, but I don't know how much my hopes of it not becoming such a big part of my life are really going to materialize.
Yeah, I think it's without question, we are being immersed in it. One of the things we've also talked about throughout this whole season is the notion of a colonized life or mind. If you're swimming in water and you have swum in water your whole life, are you aware that you're in water? And I think that is the case about being inside a country that is so defined by and bent on empire building. And we have done it all around the planet. We've beat out the UK in a lot of ways in our ability to reach across the world, but do so in a lot of ways subtly. We engage in all kinds of military actions without consequence, large and small. And we're in the midst of a major one right now. There's such a reach that we have, but there's also a mindset that we don't question because we actually aren't trained to question it. We aren't conditioned, really, even though we think of ourselves as free thinking, independent, unruled, and unruly. And I say all of that at a time of us marking our 250th anniversary as a republic. But we don't actually, we haven't had to fight for it in a long time, but I think we're coming up to a moment where we maybe have to force to fight for what is this place and what are we as a group. But in the midst of all that, I think it does require us to question what it means to form an identity as someone who resides in this country that is all about taking. and the fact that we're taking in the ocean, we're taking in space, or we want to be.
Wait, can we pause for a second there? Because when you say we haven't had to fight for it, I was thinking very terrestrial, very land-based, very like in the
Uh,
moment, like fighting for my civil rights, fighting for reproductive rights, fighting for LGBTQ rights. Like, I was thinking very literal, very on the ground,
I appreciate that.
terrestrial. So now when you're going to the oceans into the outer space, I'm like, okay, how do we fight those? How do we fight for those? And what does that mean?
I know that we've been fighting for civil rights. A lot of us have been. I'm talking more on the scale of US as a entity, like the notion of no kings, like that we actually coalesced around the idea. Even people who are systematically oppressed on these shores are part of this country, which is beyond shores also, but part of this country. Like we've all bought into a notion of freedom, of independence. And what I'm saying is, even as we've fought for civil rights, there's a way that our consciousness is not independent. We are tied to a country, an identity that is very much about military power and expansion. So, what does it mean? Are we actually free when enter in a technology that is developing faster than anything is developed, faster than the light bulb, the telephone, railroads, even the formation of the World Wide Web? Like, we literally do not know how to regulate what is underway. And I think that that technology itself is going to be, in so many ways, co opted, absorbed, subsumed in empire building. And that empire building at this point needs to go beyond land grabbing around the United States, go beyond mineral mining around the planet. Sorry, not around the United States. What I meant was around the world, beyond the land based stuff, because we're running out of space. We're running out of clean, soon, in a lot of ways, clean water. Like we have to actually go farther to try to sustain the kind of lifestyle that we've developed. And what does that require of people to allow that to happen? It requires us to not see. It requires us to not remember. It requires us to be numb. And so I think the question is the speeding up of AI going to deepen our numbness? Or is it going to be a moment where we create a reckoning for ourselves and take back a sense of consciousness? Because AI is taking this like spinning off to beyond. And I think that there is no question that our lives are going to be subsumed in it. It's already happening. I think that that is not detangled from the kind of warfare that we're seeing develop, like drone warfare. Like AI is going to exacerbate anything that has been dangerous. And I think it has the potential to improve a lot of things, but at what cost? So at what cost to our consciousness, to our freedom, to our ability to actually fight and take hold of and reclaim what it means to be free, mentally, socially, politically, economically.
Okay, you gave me a lot to think about there. So when I think about AI, no, when I'm thinking about the economy, because that was something that you had brought up a couple of times,
Yeah.
and military adventurism. Actually, wait, let me rephrase this. So you mentioned that this country, the United States, is really focused on military adventurism and expansion. And I would actually argue a slightly different, but very much related thing, which is that the country is more founded on economic expansion,
I agree.
through which military adventure is part of that.
Yes, I
And so
agree.
it's some
Or facilitates that. Facilitates that.
facilitates that, enforces
Yeah.
it. Some of the soft power work that is done as well through Hollywood, through the selling of blue jeans, through the imagery, that also does that as well. And so when I think about that, something else you said was around how we don't know how to regulate it. We don't know how to do these things. And I thought that was such an interesting way to put it, because I feel like there are people who do know how to do that. Like the people who are creating AI, the people who are, or who have,
Fair.
some of the founders of AI are sort of like, we should not be using this. I do
Fair.
not let my children use this. I would not recommend my family to use this. Like they know
I'm building bunkers in the meantime.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so it's kind of like
Yes.
people
Yes.
do know what's going on. People
This is true.
do have a sense of, oh, we probably should put a put a little bit of a barrier here, put a little firewall there, whatever it is for AI. I'm just like, why don't you just unplug it? But I mean, like, there's things you can do to sort of maintain it, to regulate it, but people are making choices not to. They're literally
Can
making
I just
choices not to.
interject and say, when you say
Sure.
people, people doesn't mean the people.
No,
There's
I'm thinking,
small entities, really. I mean, large companies, but small business entities, individual
but
entities
also
that
elected
are
officials.
pushing, okay, pushing, they're facilitating that are pushing, it's like an AI race so
Mhm.
that they don't get beat out by their AI competitor that they might have even spun off from. So they're moving so fast just so that they don't end up being dominated, So, um, oh gosh, Anthropic doesn't want to be outmatched by, overstretched by, lorded over by OpenAI, for example. Okay, so they're focused on that. They're not focused on the repercussions of all that they're building so fast.
Of course not.
And so I think that when you say people, it's just like three or four, maybe six companies, right?
When
You
I
throw
say
in
people,
Google, yes,
when I say people, I'm talking about, because we were talking about regulation. When I say people, I was talking about the elected officials
sure,
who
you want to hold
have a
them
duty
accountable.
of care to protect
Yes,
us, to look out for
yes.
first, but who are choosing to look out for the interests of corporate
Yes, I've lost
world.
faith, honestly. I'm glad that you're bringing that up, but I'm not even, sadly, expecting them to hold anything to account. I feel that it's up to the people broadly to force elected officials to get with it. I just,
But what does that even mean?
there's so much about when we just think about Congress, forgetting even the Supreme Court, but like thinking about Congress, like you say, our elected officials, that they are, it feels unplugged, out to lunch. They are enabling things, but they're not thinking big picture and long term about the repercussions. And that is so dangerous. So it's like, what does it mean to take that power back, to force them to get responsible? We
Well,
can't even manage social media. We can't even regulate social media.
because we're not trying. It's not that we can't, we just don't
I
try.
fair. You're right. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think there's kind of two levels playing at the same time, because yes, well, maybe even three. So there's the political level, the politicians who have the duty of care to sort of like oversee and regulate. Then there's the corporate level that's just creating, they're just flourishing and creating stuff and just putting it out into the
And
world.
acting as if they're people. Yes.
Yeah. And also lobbying as other people.
Yes.
And then there's the individual level. So, there's those of us, our audience, other people who have access to AI, who are using it for various means.
Yeah.
And so, those various means could be, super practical, super helpful, but they could also be potentially damaging and disseminate disinformation.
Yeah.
So, or they just create things that just are meant to stir up emotion, but then there's nowhere to put this emotion because it doesn't exist in the real world, and someone could just easily hide their identity or delete their account or whatever it is. And so, just the other day, I sent you two Instagram reels. So one of them is by Addiv Unsolicited, And so he posted
On
this one
Instagram.
on Instagram. Yeah. So he posted a reel, and it was about
That's
this
right.
woman who, and I'll put up the image if you don't mind, but it's about this woman who created this image. It was not commissioned by Nike. She was not doing anything official for anyone, but she, and for those people who are watching, you can see it, but for those who are listening, it shows an image of a black man, and his back is facing the camera, and he has Nike swooshes embedded into his back
Into
and
his skin, as
into his
if
skin.
they were deeply branded into his skin.
Right. And so, they're branded. And so it kind of is reminiscent of some of the images you see from the 1800s of Black people who have welts on their back from being whipped. But also this whole idea of a Black person being branded with an image related to sports and to entertainment also creates certain associations and certain imagery as well.
Yes.
But again, this person was not, and she's has since taken it down. But of course, I found this image just by looking it up on the internet. But again, this brings up this idea of responsibility. So if politicians are not going to regulate, and the corporate world is just going to just proliferate, and then that leaves it up to us. But then, how do we, as the people, find an equilibrium? Like, how do we have those conversations where there's an equilibrium? Because this woman, as far as I know, didn't do it in a way that was meant to be offensive. At least that's from what I remember from the Instagram reel. She didn't do it to be offensive. She meant it to stir up thought
Mm-hmm.
as a thought piece. And
And
it's
she
like,
used AI to do it. I wasn't sure if we made that clear. That
say that
that
again?
I wasn't sure if we made it clear that that was completely AI generated. Like,
No, we did. We were not clear about that, but yes, that was AI generated. That was not an actual person with brands and all that. But yeah, it was AI generated, not commissioned by Nike. And it was by this woman who just was like, "Oh, I want to put this out there in the world to stir up thought." But it's kind of like, at what point? So if this is now at the point of, so if it's gone down the levels from the political policy level from the corporate level down to the individual level, how do we have those conversations as individuals? How do we find the equilibrium where we're like, okay, this is where it all kind of, this is the middle ground where we can all operate and operate in a safe place and operate in a way that's useful and usable for everyone, not in the point where it's meant to stir up more hatred, stir up more anger, stir up more division, or where it's just like this Pollyanna-ish kind of experience where we just all are fantasizing, and again, ignoring the fact that the political and the corporate levels are still producing all this stuff that
yeah.
can be used to harm us. And given the context of this show, what does that mean for Black futures? So again, already we have, as we saw and as we just described, this image, this AI generated image. It's not even a real person, not a real marketing thing, not a real commission. Nothing about this was real, except for the emotions and the memories that it stirs up. And so, what does that mean for Black futures? Like, are we, as creative people, as a creative community, broadly speaking, that has seen its imagery colonized and marginalized and commoditized, has seen its creations musically, in fashion, in language, in all kinds of ways being used outside the bounds of the community to make money that doesn't come back to the community, and in some ways gets used against it. So when you think about certain
Yeah.
types of fashion, so for example, the jeans hanging low, I mean, I'm a little too old for understanding like why that ever became a thing, but it was a thing for a while. I think it might even still be in some places, but then it came boomerang back around and be like, oh, if you have your jeans hanging low, you're in a gang, you are poor, you have like, there's all these associations, and that happens a lot. It boomerangs back around, or it flies out of our control. So the whole,
Yes.
Jackson 5 and Boys to Men, all the boy bands, the
Mm-hmm.
boy bands became in sync. They're now K-pop. So this whole aspect of like how these bands, how this sound was used by Black bands and then was taken by white bands, and now it's being taken by Korean bands. And none of this is being acknowledged. None of this is coming back to the Black community. None of this is coming back to Black entertainers in a way that supports them. So with AI now running amok around the internet and around the world, what will that mean for Black futures?
Yeah. And I appreciate that you're often thinking about basically like cultural frontiers. You're thinking about who's stewarding all the creativity that comes out of Black identities and Black communities and Black knowledge and Black memory. I really appreciate that. And then what I am concerned about is like as are you, but what's in the forefront of my mind is infrastructure. You know what I mean? I just literally think about infrastructure and the economy. The fact that the technology is moving so quickly that yes, we can be distracted by all the cultural production coming out of the use of AI and the adoption of AI. And we can be distracted by how using AI allows us to do more things faster, but not really acknowledge the dumbing down of thought, like I think you're describing also, but also not fight about the fact of jobs disappearing, right? Like that is happening already. So young people who've just gone through their 4 years of whatever undergraduate and they think they're going to have their, beginning developing their career in some white collar work, whether it's in financial industry or at a law firm, those jobs are disappearing because of AI. That's just one. And it's like, are we crying for the middle class? I'm not crying for them in the way that I'm concerned about migrant workers, right? Being deported, or farmers who can't get enough workers to bring their crops to market. But I am concerned about what this does for the economy and then how that then ripples into affect Black people. The fact that of less and less job security, that if jobs are going away and people don't have money to do basic things, what does that mean? Like, what's the economic desperation that we could unleash? And I think that's the fact, the danger of that, the fact that we're hurtling in that direction, just like with the climate, without enough guardrails, but not even much conversation, honestly, it's really alarming. It's really alarming. And then when you combine those things together, climate impacts plus the fact of AI changing the economy, and it will happen fast. Already, AI has developed so fast, and we can see it in, like you're saying, in cultural productions and what's coming out of Hollywood, what's coming out of the music industry. So that shows us, as an example, how fast it can infiltrate our lives and, for example, take jobs. So the idea is, okay, well, if people don't have to do as many things, AI frees us up, then what? But if it means that you're so free that you don't have labor to make money, then what?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of jobs that affect Black people will be taken, forgetting, what I'm talking about with that kind of like white collar, first layer of white collar laborers. So there's so much to try to wrap our mind around. And it does make me think about empire, the fact that we're meant to be so focused on our survival, even though we're being told that things are going to get easier because of this technology. We're going to be forced to focus even more on economic survival. And at what point do we put our heads up and actually fight and say, no, like you say, Derek, about the duty of care, that elected officials are not meant to be bought.
Right.
They're meant to represent our interests, and there are smaller and smaller entities buying off our elected officials. And so you think about the oil lobby, but there's effectively an AI lobby underway from Google all the way down. So
it's been there for a while. It's the whole
yes, it's true.
Economy. I mean, Google, Facebook,
and
Alphabet, Meta, and all the rest have been around for at least 20 years. It's not
and
new.
Elon Musk and all of his businesses, with I forget what his is it X? I forget what his company is called now. But the fact of a big part of what they do is not just make cars, right? What Musk does is create lots of technology that the government depends on. And they actually tried to introduce robotic, I guess you can call them soldiers recently. Like they really are testing the bounds of what they can do. But we rely on Musk's company for some satellite communications. So the government does. So it is so immersed. It is so already deeply tentacled. We're so tethered already. That I think even the notion of saying AI has been with us, like you say, we're wrapped in it already. We just can't necessarily see it. We're starting to see it in culture productions.
Right.
But what does it mean when it starts to eat? As you said to me recently, it's eating everything. Like as it eats the economy, then what? Truly, truly. And how does that affect Black folks? And what do we know of fighting empire, let's say, that allows us to get free, stay free? Because I think the battle for freedom is not just on the level, I shouldn't say just, but it is not solely about civil rights at this point. That's what I think.
Right. So two things. So one is I like how you were saying that I am all about this cultural, like talking about the cultural
Well, you're good at
manifestation.
it. It's in the forefront of your mind a lot.
It is in the forefront of my mind, but at the same time, what I'm thinking about is not, I mean, I guess you would call it culture, and I suppose, sure, it is, but I'm thinking more about narrative. Narrative
Yes.
is really what I'm thinking
Yes.
about, because just let's take this whole AI thing just in general. The whole narrative around AI is going to replace these tiring, monotonous jobs and free us up to do all these things. We'll be free to frolic in the fields and to climb the mountains and to swim the seas, do all the things. But if you don't got no money, you don't got time to be frolicking around. You're going to have to feed yourself somehow. You're going to have to be able to afford to drive your car, get on the plane, or get to the ocean from wherever you are, or to the fields. In order to do those things, how are you going to like buy a car, buy your ticket, fill the gas tank?
Especially when the cost of all these utilities is going up because of climate crisis and because of wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm thinking about the narrative. They're making this sound like this is
Yes.
going to be this miracle shot in
Yes.
the arm for everybody. And all of a sudden, we're going to be free to do all these things. But yeah, we'll be free to frolic because we will have nothing else.
Nothing to.
We'll be living in the fields, living in the trees, living, under the rocks. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go out and like hunt my food. Like, of course you're going to be free to frolic if you can't go to the store and buy it. If you don't have a job for your house, to pay for your house, your car, whatever, of course go ahead and frolic because that's all you're going to have left. But one of the things, so thinking back to some of the previous episodes, we've talked about previous generations and we've talked about the ancestors. And something that you and I have sort of jokingly said is you can't AI the ancestors.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly what we were describing when we said that, but it's so true because part of what makes life worth living is purpose, and part of the purpose is the humanity around the connection between all of us. So if AI is now like becoming this insert between you and me and between other people and between people and communities, if there's no more community, if we're all atomized into these individuals who rely upon AI for, I don't even know what are we relying upon AI for? Because I know I want AI. If AI is going to do something for me, cook my food, wash my clothes, and buy my groceries. AI can't do any of those three things, and they're not setting it up to do those three things. So what do I need AI for? That still has not been it. That question is still not
Well, they will probably figure out to have AI buy your groceries and not very much do a good job at it. We're so close to that. But I hear your point. It's like, what are the things that we actually need to be assisted with? We're not being assisted. And so again, it just feels like I don't love having this stance in this conversation, but I just feel like negative about the trajectory. It's like, no, 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 no. Because even though I use AI in my online searching. I can do better researching, right? I'm much more efficient, right? Using AI for just general searches. But it doesn't mean that I want it to interrupt or intersperse in my life. And often it's like this gnat I have to like flit away because it's being added to so much software that I use on a daily basis. And I'm like, no, I don't need that help. You're actually doing the opposite of what I want. You're getting it wrong. No, thank you. So it's one thing if we're being invited to opt in. If we can't opt in, then I think we're talking about a battle for our minds. We're talking about a battle for, right, our attention. and our ability to truly connect with each other on our own terms. And I just think, so here's where I get to the yes, 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 right? Not just like, oh my God, the ominous thing that is upon us, is I do actually really believe in our ability to fight. I do believe in our ability to, as humans, we need each other, we want each other. But how soon do we wake up and recognize that there is a fight to be had, a battle to be had? I
Yes.
have faith in us, but it's like, how do we get it? And who's gonna? It's almost like the canaries in the coal mine are typically, pardon the pun of the coal mine, because there's that.
Mhm.
It's typically people of color, Black people in particular, people in brown communities, people in immigrant communities, people in migrant communities who are going to feel it the first and the most severe. And so,
In what ways? Can you describe that?
yeah. Well, okay, it's hard to we could sit here and imagine impacts. I could, in like people's day-to-day lives, but I think jobs is one of them,
Hmm.
right? I think especially if you have jobs that are service jobs, government jobs and service jobs, I think are a big area that's going to be sidelined. And what does that mean then for economies where people of color, Black people in particular, are working their way up as the American dream narrative goes, into the middle class? What if as that gets clipped off, that gets interrupted? And we saw what some of that looked like during the pandemic. But I think that the way that AI is rolling out, it's going to happen more rapidly, and we can't pull it back. So that's what I think I'm concerned about. Is like it's going to hurt poor folks, immigrants, brown people broadly, Black people um, in particular first. And, I would say, with the exception, I would add in probably also farmers are going to feel it. And I think so, yeah, because so much gets interrupted in terms of supply chains. The more we roboticize things, you take away truck drivers, for example, it just changes how we think about the economy and how we think about financial security. And there isn't a plan to replace, or like you say, like it doesn't mean that now it doesn't mean that everyone gets to keep their job and do it better. It means a lot of jobs are going to go away. And some people are going to be able to do their jobs better. And I think we should just be honest about that. And I think we should be honest about the fact that there isn't a plan for the people whose jobs get lost. There just is not a plan. There is no policy. We're not planning. Maybe there's de facto plan in place.
Hmm. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah. So just going back, I want to go back two steps. Two
Go ahead.
steps. So with the roboticized slash AI truck drivers, I don't drive. I don't have a really need to drive. I don't really leave the cities, or if I do, I fly from city to city or take a train. As someone who drives, are you going to be comfortable being on a highway with a robot truck driver?
You can argue that we don't even know when it's happening. That's the whole point of the immersion of it.
But
It's
that's not the
you're
question. Are
asking the
you going
question
to be
as if,
comfortable? But
Derek,
would you be comfortable?
no,
Yes, no.
but it's
Okay.
happening. Like you're asking the question as if we have the agency to determine or interrupt. No, it's
I'm not
happening.
asking it with that with those
Because like you
assumptions. I'm
said,
just asking as a person in a car, because I've seen your
corporate
car. Your
level,
car is teeny tiny,
it is
and those
tiny.
trucks are mighty jumbo. So, and you going, let's say you're on I-93 going through the tunnels, or I-95 going to the airport tunnels, or you're on I-90 heading west, wherever you go. I know you must get on a highway at least once a week, if not once a month, and you pass trucks. And you're in Boston, so we don't have a whole lot of truck traffic that runs during the day. Like a lot of our truck traffic runs at night.
Yeah, I'm more
But you go to some of
picturing
these other cities, and there's truck traffic
I'm
all
picturing
of the
the
time.
country, like the long haul truck driving that happens like in the Midwest. That's more what I'm picturing. Yeah,
Yeah, but they
and
still have to get to the cities. I mean, our vegetables from California don't
this
just
is
stop at
true.
the border
This is true.
with New York. They have
What
to
is
get
your
to the
point?
warehouses.
Yes, of course I'd be unsettled. I'm saying that's one of many things that will be happening that we don't have. I don't want to say we don't have control because I'm not quite in that place. But like we don't have the agency yet to we haven't reclaimed the agency to interrupt and say, no, this is too far, too much, too fast. What's it going to take?
I think that's kind of where we are now. I mean, we know we want to talk about Black futures. We know that AI potentially is part of Black futures.
We know that Black people will be in the future.
Yes, let's claim that Black people are in the future. That's both a question and a statement I've seen, but we're going to go for the statement. Black people are in the future. And not just Uhura and the Black Vulcans and the Black, all the crazy Black people with the pointy ears and the big noses and the things on their heads, like regular ass Black people too. So, like, yeah, what is a Black future? What do Black futures look like? What are some aspects of that? And we don't even have to think like 22nd, 23rd century where we're potentially in space, like just here on Earth, round the way.
Yeah.
What's going on? Popping out the subway or coming down the elevator from your home, walking down the street. If we're walking, maybe we're taking flying cars. I don't know. Like what do Black futures look like? And maybe we shouldn't even project 100 years out, just 10 years out.
Honestly, yes. I think I was going to say 25 years, but yeah, we could do 10. There's
Or
going to be a
25.
lot
I mean,
that's
that's a
different.
whole like another generation of people.
It's true. It's true.
We'll
It's
be
true.
sunsetting, but there'll be a lot of new people popping up, walking around. I mean, they're already
Yeah, and
here.
I want to add, in my mind, in Black futures, Black people are also in rural areas too, still, and they're still growing food and holding on to knowledge that they have. And so there's something we don't quite know how to, I think, pin down to say, here's the thing that we're most miffed about. But we're bothered by this. The word that keeps coming to my mind is immersion. It's like we're being immersed in something, but it's also like there's something intruding, like it's spreading like a liquid, and you can't wind it back. So in a way, it's fascinating. It's like, oh, this is so big and it's so significant and it's so generation shifted. What say do we have in how this plays out? And what do we know, honestly, from previous iterations of such kinds of intrusions and takeovers by government, by military? Like, what can we learn? And particularly, what as Black people, what can we recall that helps us adapt now?
Mm-hmm. I would also add, how do we demystify the future and our place in it? I think some of the questions you're posing give the sense of like, oh, there's this amorphous unknown. And so it's like, well, we should know something, or we should create something. Either we figure it out and we know it, or we're like, we don't know it, so we're going to create this instead. And so I think either of those processes involves a level of demystification, because it's like, well, if we don't know, we got to figure it out.
Can you give an example?
Good question.
Yeah,
so
like
in terms of the demystifying of something,
yeah,
I think it's very broad, but our place in AI as a community, whether that's as your local community, as your local, like somebody in Wilkes-Barre or Mattapan, or like Black community more broadly in the U.S. or Black diaspora more broadly globally. So let's take those. So again, what would demystification of the Black experience in AI look like? I think part of it is the control of that narrative. So like, what is the narrative that we expect to be created? So again, we saw this white woman created this picture of this Black man through AI with these Nike scars on his back. And it's like, well, why would you do that? Like, how do we demystify the narrative creation, the narrative creation process? Because I think those are two different things. So that as Black people in the future, we're creating futures that make sense for us, and that are usable for us, and that are useful for us. Because the other Instagram video that I sent you recently was that one, I forget what her full name is, but her first name is Whitney, and she was talking about how her voice, because she does a ton of short form videos, how her voice was taken and used by an AI, and that AI basically took what she said and applied it to a different video. But that AI is also taking voices from a ton of other people across the internet and applying it to a ton of different videos for all kinds of things. And so it was funny because she was like, is this digital blackface? And so it's kind of like, well, okay, well, let's demystify this process. Like, how does it happen? Who's doing it? Why are they doing it? Like, let's actually, find out what some of the entry points are for this. Let's, try to figure out like what the uses are, what some potential regulations are, as you mentioned, and how do we stop this? And then how do we take what we actually create? Because this is what we talked about earlier. How do we take our actual creations and use them for our benefit individually and communally? Because again, if we're going to be in the future, let's actually be in a future that we want to be in.
Yeah.
That's usable and useful, creative, interesting, and
Yeah.
humane.
And
And
humane.
humane, right?
And
So
connected. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Melanie, we're covering a lot of different aspects of a lot of different things, sort of driven by AI. And so down with AI. But yeah, I mean, I think this is sort of a bridge episode. Like we like to sort of recap and think about what we've learned, who we've spoken to, and what we've been thinking about and discussing. But for the audience, hello audience, we are also using this as an opportunity to bridge into the future, to bridge into some of the future episodes, because AI, like we say, is becoming ubiquitous. It's growing in presence. It's in a lot of places, but we also want to reclaim our humanity. Not even reclaim it, but maintain our humanity. We said we can't AI the ancestors. If AI is coming for your job, what are you going to do? As Melanie has been saying, poor communities, Black communities, immigrant communities will be impacted by AI probably first and hardest. And so what's next? What's next for us? And that's kind of where we want to go in some of the upcoming episodes is like, if there are Black people in the future, which we believe there are, which we know there will be, what do we do? Where do we go? How do we create and how do we demystify things?
Yeah. Demystify. And then what are liberatory practices
Mm-hmm.
that might grow out of how we respond to changes? And I think I just can't think about AI without thinking about climate changes, eruptions, disruptions.
Yeah.
And so both of these frontiers, let's call them, are unavoidable for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a way, that's an invitation. That's exciting. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
what do we know and how do we bring that to bear on how we connect, we adapt, we prepare, and we rebuild?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have, I think, a pretty interesting list of guests that we're going to reach out to over the course of the next couple of months to have some potentially very interesting, exciting, complex,
Broad reaching.
yeah, very broad-reaching, far-reaching conversations.
Yeah.
We also, I think this is a good opportunity to extend to the audience. If you know folks, and it doesn't have to be in AI, but folks who are thinking about Black futures in some aspect, feel free to shoot us an email or communicate with us and let us know. We'd be happy to speak to some new folks. But yeah, we definitely want to explore this idea of Black futures from the deep sea into outer space and beyond, because there's just so much to think about, and we're all interconnected. Everything
Yeah.
is interconnected. We can't survive without each other and without the systems
Amen.
that support us. So that's the invitation for you to contribute to the show if you would like, or of course you're welcome to keep listening and tuning in.
Thank you for being with us.
As always, thank you for being with us, and we will see you on the next episode of the Black Landing Forum. Take care.